HIPAA regulations call for something that's known in the regulations as sanctions. In other IT regulatory aspects, sometimes it's referred to as well. And really what sanction simply means is that we've got to have a consequence for employees not following HIPAA guidelines. So we have rules and we establish what those rules are through policies, through training, through procedures that we put into place. What's the consequence to an employee if they do not follow those rules? That's what a sanction is. HIPAA calls for a written and a documented sanction policy, and that can be a tiered structure. So oftentimes what I'll see is the very first phase of a HIPAA enforcement document is going to call for somebody to do something very simple like remediation through training. So for instance, if I accidentally leave something on my desk that shouldn't be left on my desk, if we have a clean desk policy and I leave something exposed on my desk and I walk away from that, rather than fire the person right off the bat, and we wouldn't have no employees working if every time somebody made a mistake we fired them. What we can do is we can implement a policy that would simply say, hey, first step for an offense like that is we're just going to do a reminder. In fact, we actually produce for our customers little gotcha cards that they can use. And so if almost on a funny kind of reminder level, if they catch them doing something that they're not supposed to do, they can put that card out, and when they walk back, they've got the card on their desk and like, oh my goodness, I forgot to do something. And so it's a very soft reminder to try to just keep them on task, focused on HIPAA regulations. Now, a second phase might be to actually do some formalized training with that employee, remediating that particular behavior. So if that happened a second time, or it was more of an egregious type of effect that they were going to have, what we would do at that point is we would maybe do some more formalized training. We'd sit them back, go over that particular portion of the HIPAA regulations with them, what our policies are within the company, maybe make them watch a video or some type of training. Lots of things are available along that line. Now let's say if the behavior continued or it worsened, then we probably would have some more formal policy at that point, which would call for them to maybe be written up, verbal warning, written warning, and then eventually obviously termination. Now you've got to adapt those rules based on the particular type of offense. If it is some kind of gross negligence that results in a breach, you're probably going to terminate that employee without doing any of the other steps. And the sanction policy needs to kind of identify that. For this behavior, we're going to just do a soft educational step with you. For this kind of behavior, we're going to start with a harder educational reminder. For this kind of behavior, we're immediately going to go to disciplinary action. And for this type of behavior over here, we're going to terminate you right off the bat and perhaps even report you to authorities for whatever it is that you've done. So sanctions is important because employees need to have skin in the game and understand that the regulations apply to them. Now, another way of doing sanctions that's a little less intimidating and a little less formal is to have someone like myself come in and do a presentation on HIPAA. And I always emphasize the employee aspect of HIPAA. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the regulations aren't just for business entities, they're for individuals. And the fines can be assigned to individuals just as they can be to the business entity itself. So as a person, if I'm grossly negligent in handling patient private information, it is possible that they will fine me individually and no one else can pay that. I have to pay that. It's a fine issued by the government. And if I'm incredibly dishonest in what I've been doing related to the patient information, stealing information, that kind of thing, I can actually go to jail for that. And so we communicate that, and that actually really gives them some incentive to make sure that they're going to comply with the rules and the regulations at that particular point. So a combination of end-user training, helping them to understand their skin in the game from the consequences from the government's perspective, but then also very important to have those sanctions, those regulations in play in your own organization to say, here's our policies, how we enforce those, and what's going to happen if you violate those. That is sanctions, and that is a requirement of HIPAA. You better make sure you've got it in writing as part of your HIPAA documentation.